take us behind the scenes of what it was like to build a business on the side while you're working, doing all the things. You're a mom too, right? So you're like balancing that as well. Give us a
Yeah.
kind of the real deal, because I think unfortunately, a lot of folks sell entrepreneurship as this like magic pill, this sexy thing. You just snap your fingers and you have $1 million business,
Mm.
but that's not actually how it works, right?
No, definitely not. So I would literally get off my job, like have an hour for like, eating, relaxing. And then I would have a call at 5, 6, 7, and 8 after work. I would call calls in the weekends, and I was tired. I listened to a podcast that really, really helped me. And it was like, of all the tireds that you could be, this is the tired that I'm going to choose. And for me, I was like, okay, if I'm
Mhm.
going to be tired, I'm going to, I'm going to be tired for my dream. I'm going to be tired for my goal.
Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Yo Quiero Dinero. Today, we are welcoming the lovely Andrea Ramos, who is the founder of the platform Building Gen Wealth. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting to be here.
I am always excited to have incredible mujeres like yourself who are helping our community build wealth, talk about money unapologetically. And so, for folks who have not interacted with you before, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll get into the backstory of how you became a Gen Wealth builder.
Yeah. So my name is Andrea. I was born in Peru. My parents immigrated here when I was around 5 years old. We went to Illinois. So it was like a lot colder than where I'm at now. I'm based in
Yeah.
Florida. Um, and yeah, I think I grew up really just like not thinking about money, but also being very aware of it. If that makes sense. My dad was like hey, you need to save, you need to save. My mom never talked about money, but I always saw her working. She was always an entrepreneur. So I feel like I got both sides of like different sides of money.
Hmm.
But we came to the US. I followed like an American dream, go to college, get a job, get good benefits. And then I had this moment of like, okay, um, that didn't really pan out the way that I thought it would. I ended up getting a really low paying job. My first job out of college was $22,000 a year.
Ooh.
I accepted it without even knowing the salary. That was like a whole story. And then I'm like working this job for like 3 months. I'm like, is this it? Like, this is what my parents wanted me, like, this is what they wanted for me.
Hmm.
And so then that kind of led into like, what else is there out there? Like, what else can we do with money? How else can I learn like how this works? And then that started kind of like my passion and learnings about money.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you, like many other first gen, were following the script. Go to school, get the job, and then many of us wake up to this idea of like, well, what the hell was the point of all this? Because it's not as glamorous as it may have seemed when our parents were thinking about it. What did you study in school, and what was your original career goal?
Yeah, so I was a marketing major with a minor in entrepreneurship. So that's the thing. My mom always kind of was like, hey, but you should always start a business. She would always just like tell that to me. And I'd be like, yeah, mom, but like, I'm going to follow this path that my dad and, you also are like telling me, but she would still whisper that. So that's what like influenced like what I wanted to study. I originally just wanted to work at corporate. Like I remember wanting to work at Dropbox because when I was graduating, they were like an up and coming company. And so I wanted to
Mm.
just be in marketing and corporate. I have always enjoyed business, but I was like, I can't be an entrepreneur. I should just work for a company, learn about business, and then maybe at some point, start my own thing. So that was kind of like the
Yeah.
inspiration behind it.
Have you talked to your mom about where her drive for entrepreneurship has come from? Because one thing that I've noticed about our community, specifically as Latinos, is we have often like shied away from entrepreneurship as more generations become quote unquote more educated, because I think a lot of people have this perception that you become an entrepreneur, you start a business because you either have like, a legal status that maybe doesn't let you work, or you don't have a traditional education that opens up like corporate jobs for you, or you don't have traditional skills that could be like, get you the nice cushy office job. So where do you think your mom's passion for entrepreneurship comes from?
Yeah, I think it was probably out of necessity. She was the oldest of like seven siblings, and her dad
Mm,
passed away when she was 16. So
yeah.
she kind of adopted the parent, the father figure role, and that came with like, okay, I need to help my mom, my grandma. And so
Yeah.
my grandma, she had her own business in that like she sold like spices and sazones and like chopped garlic. So to make cooking easier, you just buy
Mhm.
that instead. So
Yeah.
she had that and she would help her with that. But then she was like trying to go to school and also like help provide for her siblings. And so I think for her, it birthed out of the necessity. But then she also shared with me that like when she was little, instead of playing dolls, she would like collect candy wrappers and be like, okay, this is my store. Here's my fake money. Come to my store and I'll
Oh,
sell you.
how cool.
And she would sell like little rocks. So she's like, the drive has always been there. And then it kind of like the fruit came from like just like a really hard time.
Yeah, yeah. So as the child of immigrants, I'm sure that your story is similar to many that listen to the show, that you saw maybe money not being something that is a positive force, right? Oftentimes we hear about stories where money was scarce and maybe it was something that wasn't talked about or it was something that caused conflict. Can you think about what your money story was growing up?
Yeah. So for me, it was like a lot of it was my dad would just be like, hey, you need to save. Saving is good. It's going to like, help you. I remember once like we were at the kitchen table and he was like, I pay bill. Like he was kind of giving me a little informal money lesson. He was like, and then
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I have like this thing called plata de nadie, which means like no one's money. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, plata de nadie is like money that you put away and you just forget about it. Nobody knows it's there. It's for nobody. It's for nothing. He was talking about an emergency fund, but he's just being so dramatic about it. And so I took that money lesson and I was like, oh, like, I guess that's what we do. We just like store it away for nothing. But as soon as I got paid, like I would save it for college. Like I think got $800 for my quince and I was like, I'm going to save this for college
Wow.
because that's just what we do with money.
Yeah.
And so I always grew up a saver. And then it wasn't until I got my job that that paid low that I was like, okay, I'm gonna save. And I saved with even that salary. I found really low rent. I was paying like $200 a month for rent. So I was still able to save with that. But then there came a point where I was like, okay, savings isn't enough. Savings isn't going to do a lot for me. And this became pretty evident when in 2018, both my parents were diagnosed with cancer, like literally
Mm,
months from each other, one in
wow.
January and one in March. And I was like, what is happening? So I like went home and I was like, helping them go to the hospital, helping them take care of things. And I just saw how quickly my savings drained, right? Like I used all my PTO, I used everything, and it was like a very short financial runway. And then I saw
Yeah.
my parents and they had actually built wealth, but I didn't know because we never talked about money. I knew they had real estate, but I was able to see how wealth in that moment really covered them and really protected them, because they were able to just like in this really hard time focus on healing and not have to like
Mm,
work because their rental income was coming in. And I was like, whoa, like they were able to create this and what am I doing? Like here am I, like like you guys started when you were 40 and I'm here like I really wasn't focused. I was just like, yeah, like I just graduated college. I'm still young. And so
yeah.
that was like a huge wake up call that one, I wanted to focus. And then two, there has to be something more than savings. And
Mm,
so that
mhm.
led my like, okay, how do people grow their money? I hear so many people like, I want my money to work for me. What does that actually mean? Can I do it? I only make like less than 30K a year. Like, is it possible for me? And so that started the path of just learning like wealth and how that all, plays out.
Yeah. So tell us about your self-education path. So what did you do, like that first moment where you realized I need to learn more about what people are doing with money? Did you go on Google? Did you find books? Did you start listening to podcasts? Like what was your journey to learning about money?
Yeah. So it was actually, it's this personal finance educator that is an old white man who has his little baby steps.
Oh yeah, we know him.
I,
He's
I don't ever
infamous
like to
around
say his
here.
name because I'm like, I don't want to do free marketing for you, but if
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
not
you
giving
know.
him no press.
Yeah. So I started there, and it was like my first exposure to like, oh, people talk about money. I didn't know what a zero-based budget was. I didn't know any of these things. Like I just knew how to save. And a lot of it
Yeah.
was because like I was just able to keep my expenses low. And so I started learning and I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. Like, why didn't I learn this? Like, this is so, like, I just had this like, aha, like wide open eyes of like, I'm learning all this stuff. But his approach was so condescending and like, it was so abrasive. And I just remember being like, man, like, the stuff that you're saying is so good, but I know it's not going to land with other people because you're just coming off too harsh. And I remember I was like on week
Mm,
5 or 6 of that course, and I remember being like, man, like this is a bummer. Like this message is so good and it's gonna get lost because this is not the right messenger for like my community and like people that like want
mm,
to learn about this. And then I had this little
yeah.
whispering, fleeing thought that was like, you should like tell people about, you should start talking about it. And I was like, no, I can't do that. That's, I'm just learning. Like, no, no, no. And so I continued the class, learned about investing. In one of the classes, I learned like, hey, like, if I would have started investing at this point, like all of this is what I would have made. I saw the cost of waiting, and I like literally saw the number, and I was like, wait, there's like, what do I have to do to get this? And the guy was like, well, you could do
Yeah.
this and we could blah, blah, blah. But he's like, but honestly, don't focus on the past. Just like go from here and just like start building now. And so I remember driving home and being like, oh, I'm so disappointed. Like, I'm so, like, no one told me this. Like, why? And it's just like such a like deep
Mm,
feeling of disappointment and like, and then I remember thinking, like, I don't want anybody else to feel this. And then that like thought of like, maybe I should start talking about when he came back. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to share with my friends on Instagram who like are already following me. And they're like, well, we might as well listen to me talk about something useful. And so that's where that kind of kicked off.
and where was this, like, when you think back to your timeline as far as when you first started learning about money to when you first started sharing about it, what was that like?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. So I think I started going to the classes in like June, and then no, I lied. I started going in like February, and then around July I started sharing. So I started going to those classes, but then
And
I
this
like
is back in
supplemented like
2020?
2018.
2018. Okay. So, 2018, you start educating yourself, and that same year you started sharing kind of what you were doing with your money journey.
Just personally, like, hey
Okay.
guys, like I'm doing this. I learned about this. And then later in the year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch my Instagram because now all the content is around this. And then it kind of started. That's when everybody was like, I feel like coming out with like, hey, like I'm talking about money too. So it, like, I also found this community, and I was like, wow, other people are doing this too. So it kind of was like all happened at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, I feel like the pandemic was a huge wake-up call for people around money, around career, around I guess everybody was just bored in the house bored, and everybody
Absolutely.
wanted to start learning about money. And so there's something to be said about like kind of right place, right time for this conversation. And I'm curious, like, what were some of those initial reactions from your friends about like what you were doing, right? Because it's kind of taboo to talk about money on the internet, especially to strangers. So, what kind of feedback did you get initially?
I think it was pretty welcoming. Like I think a lot of people and this is where I realized like, oh, a lot of you guys are hungry for this conversation because nobody has it. And I think the way that
Mm,
I talked about it was very much like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm learning. And so I could tell like a lot of people were engaged because whenever I asked a question, people would respond, or so I could tell like, oh, people are really curious, which has just prompted me to like double down and be like, all right, well, now I'm learning this, or like now I'm doing that. So for the most part, it was good. But I do remember being like, and I still sometimes I'm like, am I wealthy enough to like talk about
mm,
this? It's that like
mhm.
lingering thought always still comes because I'm like, like how, do I know enough? And the imposter syndrome. But I think at the end of the day, I go like, hey, like if I know what I know is more than someone else, and like sometimes it's comforting to like learn from someone that's not necessarily super far in advance because it almost feels like I ever get there. Whereas like I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
could show you what I've learned in the last like 2 years, 3 months, which feels a little bit more digestible to people than like maybe a millionaire being like, this is tax strategy for blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
it's kind of like the same experience that people have, listening to Dave Ramsey, and it's like you're 25 years old listening to a man who's like obviously been on the planet a lot longer, has had a lot more time to build massive amounts of wealth. And I always find it
Hmm.
ironic about him specifically that he teaches this like extreme shame-based frugality, but most of his wealth has not come from those principles. It's come from you doing entrepreneurship, sir. So, it's one of those things where you got to be careful about the messenger as well as the message,
Hmm.
because oftentimes it's not as cut and dry as it may seem. And so that's why I appreciate your content, because you are sharing pretty much like in real time, like what you're accomplishing with your finances, the things that you're learning. And I think that is what helps people feel more relatable, and also what makes the accomplishments financially feel more attainable, because it's like, oh, I can see myself in your story. We're from the same, culture. We're around the same age group. We come from the same background of not learning anything about money and don't have the privilege that like other communities and other groups have had to, make much more financial progress than us.
Yeah, and I think that honestly for because I didn't really have an intention of building a business. I like was exposed in 2019 to the online coaching space, but it was just a bunch of like white coaches and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is what they do." And then I saw a Cuban American like like sharing her offers and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what? Like could I do that?" So yeah, seeing that representation I know it mattered for me
Mm.
because then I was like, "Wait, do and then people started asking me for like money, like, can I buy a session? And I was like, is this a business? Like, and so that kicked off like entrepreneurship.
I love that. So let's dive into that too, because right, you have now left your marketing career and you are doing money coaching full time. Talk me through that transition, how you prepared yourself to make that leap. Take us behind the scenes of what it was like to build a business on the side while you're working, doing all the things. You're a mom too, right? So you're like balancing that as well. Give us
Yeah.
a kind of the real deal, because I think unfortunately a lot of folks sell entrepreneurship as this like magic pill, this sexy thing. You just snap your fingers and you have $1 million business,
Mhm.
but that's not actually how it works, right?
No, definitely not. Yeah, no. Okay. So my first client came in 2019 and I was balancing my 9 to 5 with my business for 2019, 2020, all the way until 2023. So for those 4 years, 3.5 years, I was just doing both. And I remember it being hard, but I did it in like I think I like when I go back to it, I'm like, oh, there was like definitely stages. Stage one was like, let me get used to just like giving up my evenings. And that was hard because I would just, when you're done working, like, okay, let's go hang out, let's do whatever, let's relax. Where now it's like, okay, 2 days out of the week, I'm going to be working on something that I don't even know is going to work. Like that was hard. So I stretched my capacity there. Then it's like, okay, now I'm getting more clients and it's like working semi. Okay, now 4 of my nights out of the week are like, taken up. And so it was like that phase really was just like stretching my capacity of like I'm just not going to have this much freedom anymore, but it's okay because I'm willing to like put that in that work. I got to a point where I
Yeah.
had about 12 clients and my 9 to 5 job. So I would literally get off my job, like have an hour for like, eating, relaxing. And then I would have a call at 5, 6, 7, and 8 after work. I would call calls in the weekends and I was tired. I listened to a podcast that really, really helped me. And it was like, of all the tireds that you could be, this is the tired that I'm going to choose. And for me, I was like, okay, if I'm
Mm.
going to be tired, I'm going to, I'm going to be tired for my dream. I'm going to be tired for my goal. So that
Mm.
was like the time mindset that I had about it. And then there's the whole like I'm learning a new skill. Like I had never marketed and sold. I'd never done a sales call. There were just so many skills. And then I'm a very like algorithmic person. Like what's the equation? And then I'm like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And like it took me a while to like realize like sales and marketing is a formula, and it's not fully a formula. It's like a balance of a lot of different things. And then you figure it out and things change and the market changes. And there's just a lot of variables that I'm like, I just wish these were constant. And so I realized, like, oh, the skill isn't necessarily to figure out the variable and then I'm done. The skill is to be adaptable and learn how to problem solve when anything comes. And that's
Yeah.
really hard for it was really hard for my brain because we just like certainty. And
Yeah.
so I think that has been like the grind for me of like, first it was like the time capacity thing, and now it's like, okay, I know how to solve problems. I know how to bring in sales. And now I have to just trust myself. Like I can do it in any economy. I can do it with as a new mom. I can do it. But sometimes it feels like you're starting over or you're like, and that can feel so frustrating. There's been times where I'm like, I just want to be a hostess because all you do is say, here's your table. It's so easy. My husband's like, okay,
Yes.
relax.
Sometimes it would be nice to just shut off the entrepreneur brain because it really does just run 24/7. But, I think it's one of the things, the price we have to pay for just having the opportunity to make money doing something that we're excited about, and, having that unlimited income potential, which is completely opposite of you and your like $22,000 a year job back in the day.
You know what's crazy? In the first year that I went full time, I made $22,000 in 1 month as an entrepreneur. And it was a
I
moment where
mean,
I was like,
geez.
this is crazy.
Yeah,
It
I
took
I
me a
mean, you have to
year.
be like have several degrees usually, maybe you went to medical school or law school or something to even fathom making that type of income in a traditional career. And that's why I tell people, your job title is probably limiting your income because you are just seeing it as
Mm,
I need to do XYZ to make this type of money. And it's like, no, entrepreneurship opens you up to the idea that you are literally a money printer and can create income from the ideas and the thoughts and the skills and the talents that you have.
yeah, and when I realized, when I had that aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like it literally would take me a year to bring in this amount of money, and now I learned how to bring it in a month. I was like, wait, can I learn how to bring that in 3 weeks? Like it just like warped my mind from like what is possible. And I think this is the thing like that is missing a little bit in the personal finance space. And the skill that I learned last is like the skill of making money. Because I think
Mm,
I went into like, okay, I know how to save money. I know how to grow money. Okay, cool. And then I have my job and I'm going to do all three. And that's fine. I think that not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. It really does take like you have to love problem solving. You have to be okay with uncertainty. But I think uh if you are in a 9 to 5 or if you do start your business, you need to look at the third skill of money, which is like how do I like actively grow my skill of making money? Um because even if you do have a 9 to 5, like, are you proactively pursuing, like, when is my next raise? Or are you just kind of waiting? I feel like that sometimes is like I just wait for people to tell me, like, what I earn. And I'm like, no, but like, what do you want to earn? And then, like, how do you align your value to, like, match that, right? Because if we think about it all as like a system, which it is, like, how does the system work? What does the system reward for value? Like how do you match yourself to that, right? If a 9 to 5 is like the route you want to take, you still are in control of like how much you can make. It's just going to look different than an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has a little bit more flexibility of
yeah.
like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, and this is the goal. But I think we both, whether you're a 9 to 5 or an entrepreneur, like need to look at like the skill of making money as an actual skill
Mhm.
rather than just like I just get what I get.
Yeah, yeah. Let's break that down more because I think oftentimes people have this idea that you just are good at making money or you're not. Do you believe that making money is something that anybody can learn how to do, like how to actually generate income from their thoughts, their ideas outside of going and applying to a job?
Yes, 100%. And I think that like when people hear that, they might be like, yeah, but I don't know where to start. And I would say, okay, maybe you don't know where to start for a business or maybe you don't know where to start for a product. But let's just take the skill of making money as like a stage one. If I were to be like, hey, you need to make $100 today, what would you do? For most people, if they've never stretched their brain to think about this, they'd be like, I would sell my couch. Okay, great. Give yourself credit for you just figured out with your head, with your brain, how to create money. Not ideal, right? Because we don't want to sell our furniture just to make money, but like that's stage one. Stage two is like, okay, how do I like trade my time for money? Right. And so I think that when I say like, hey, we need to stretch, like we need to learn the skill of making money, for me, it's like you have to build the belief that you can make money and start where you are. For me, if someone were to pose the question, if you were to need to make an extra $500 in a month, I'd be like, I literally would, I would have no idea. But that's where I was at the time. Now I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could do that,
Yeah.
right? But I think
Yeah.
it's like just realizing where is your belief, start there. And then it's easier to build on the belief, right? Because if you're like,
Hmm.
oh, like if I need to make $100, I would just do X, Y, Z, and Z. Then it's like, okay, if I need to make $500 today, what would I do? Oh, okay, I can't do all those things. I need to now stretch my mind to like what else is available. Now, it might be
Mm,
like that's the goal, and I'm working on that goal for a month, right? But yeah, that's kind of how I think about it.
yeah. I'm curious how your financial habits have changed since you became an entrepreneur versus what you used to do as someone who had like a reliable paycheck, right? Because I think one of the things that trips up a lot of new business owners is the fact that the way you manage your finances probably has to drastically change, basically because of the variable income situation where you're not necessarily making the same amount of money every month.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that was like the most intimidating for me. And so I joined a money coaching program for business owners because I was like, this variable income like really is making me nervous. Like I need to really understand. And so um I pretty much now what I do is I always pay myself the same amount. I've paid myself the same amount since I have left my 9 to 5. And then I have my like 3 months of business reserves. Um, and regardless of like what if sales are high or sales are low, like I always pay like me, the person gets paid the same amount. And I think that's the
Hmm.
biggest thing is like from day one, I'm like almost have like a dual perception of myself. It's like I am the employee and I'm also the owner.
Yeah.
And I have conversations with myself sometimes where it's like, oh, like, it would be nice to buy this thing, says the employee. And then like CEO Andrea is like, and also like, this is your pay for now. We haven't like increased your pay. And I think the biggest thing that happens with entrepreneurship is that like when the money comes, it feels like it's all yours, and it is, but it's not. You have to
Hmm.
share that revenue with taxes, with operating expenses, with investments. And so like I never see like when that 22K month came in, I still paid myself like my owner's pay. Maybe I gave myself a little bonus
Hmm.
as like, oh my gosh, amazing. But I think that has been
Right.
like the biggest thing. And this is why I like when I talk about money, I'm like, hey guys, the skill of saving really is the foundation to everything. If you know how to
Mm,
save, debt payoff is inevitable. If you know how to save, entrepreneurship is a lot easier. If you know how to save, you'll know how to build wealth because you need the mechanism of saving, which is constantly investing. And so for me, I think that really helped me in going into entrepreneurship is like I had mastered the skill of saving. So even if a lot came in, I was like, we need to save this, we need to do this. Like, yeah.
mhm.
So
It's having that discipline kind of built into the system, which I think that makes a lot of sense. I follow the same principles too. So my paycheck is the same every month, regardless of what we do in the business. And, that's when things are great, fine. Give yourself an extra like owner's draw, a little bonus. Maybe you go and take a nice, 2-week trip or something. But having that baseline that you can reliably count on, I think is important. And it helps you not become a person that gets caught in the feast or famine cycle, which often happens for people in the initial phase of entrepreneurship. Another thing that stresses me out about business owners is that they forget about what is going to happen in the future. Like, we still need to invest
mm,
for retirement. We still need to have an exit strategy for your business because you might not want to do this shit forever, even if you love it, right? Or maybe you get bored one day and you're like, I want to go do something else. But if you haven't given yourself that financial runway to change, to pivot, to retire, you're going to find yourself on the same hamster wheel that you were trying to maybe escape from when it comes to a traditional corporate job. So, what does that wealth building journey look like for you and your family as someone who is now a full time entrepreneur?
So retirement, thankfully, like I front loaded a lot of retirement when I was in my like marketing job, and then I got married, and so now we have like a collective retirement goal, and so we're on track. I still am trying to like max out my Roth IRA every year. What I now do is I, instead of doing it like a monthly, I do a monthly for my personal finances, but the monthly is not going to get me to the max. So then I use like quarters of the year to kind of like add a little bit more. So it's still a
Hmm.
priority, but I'm so thankful for like 2018, 2019, 2020 Andrea, who just like grinded, because now I'm like, oh, she did a lot of it. And like now it just needs to compound. And so I still, it's still in my mind, like I still have to like pay attention to it, but I'm not like trying to catch up, or am not as stressed about it, because like a lot of the work has been done. But
Hmm.
it is something that is still part of the equation, because I know, like, yeah, you set to hit 1 million or 2 million, but in my mind, I'm like, well, if you can put more to have later, why not, you know?
Why not? That's that saver brain. There's never too much savings. So let's talk about what you have learned about yourself from like a maybe a personality trait or character traits that you think have contributed to your success. I know obviously discipline, like being able to see the number and not automatically go and be like, I'm going to go and buy a Louis Vuitton bag because I made, an extra 5 grand or whatever this month. What else do you think you can attribute to just your personality that makes it so that building wealth is essentially inevitable for you?
I think it has been my I don't so I wouldn't even say I'm like a tenacious person, but when I think about the definition of tenacity, like when I want something, I think I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to it. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. Like even this year, I'm like coming back from maternity leave, like I didn't keep my business afloat. Like things just like kind of shut down. So rebuilding that momentum was hard. So many lessons learned. I would not do that again. But in those moments I was like, like, do I want this? Like I will have my doubts, but I never waver on like, but this is what I want. And I like noticed that when I was trying to make this varsity soccer team in high school. Like like I did everything that I needed to do to get on that team. And I think that really serves me. But that's not to say that it doesn't come with like doubt or uncertainty or like imposter syndrome. There's like I'm still very human, but I think at the end of the day, I'm like, well, what else am I gonna do? Like, am I just gonna like I'm going to work hard in any area that I'm in. Let me just like exhaust my goal and vision. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But even then, I'm like, okay, well, I'll get on 9 to 5 and I'll start a money YouTube channel. Like have my, so I
Yes.
think there's the,
The worst case scenario is like everybody's normal life.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's just like having that, like that long term, like this is what matters. It also, I think I've paid attention to like how I am in my prior 9 to 5s, and in every 9 to 5, I like start something new on the side, or
Mm.
I do this thing, or I find this other job. And so it's like I've noticed like, oh, I know what that is, and you're just not satisfied and happy there. And once somebody told me, I think you're the kind of person who's not going to be satisfied until you're like your own like boss. And I was like, okay. And so I just like remembered that. And so I think just like kind of rooting into my identity, and looking at like, okay, this is my rest of my life. Like I might as well just pursue it, and having that vision. Honestly, if I were to go back and answer your question after that ramble, it would be like a big vision. And I think my big vision is like,
Mhm.
I want this, and I'm going to continue to pursue it. And even if there's detours or doubts or whatever, like cool, that happens. And then we're like back to the vision.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. You gotta kind of focus on the greater why, on those days that things get a little more difficult. So
Yeah.
you mentioned you're a new mom, and I'm curious how your money journey has evolved since then, right? Because now it's like it's not just about me anymore. There's a little person who is counting on me being a success, and I know for me, I have felt kind of the just like the responsibility to pass on not just like, traditions and the culture, but also like the money lessons that I wish I had learned too. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so my daughter was born at the beginning of the year, so I'm brand new here.
Congratulations, girl.
um,
Welcome to the club.
we're learning as we go. Yeah, I think the obviously like, I had learned about like the accounts to set up and all of that. And we have gotten that started. I have an UGMA. I want to start a 529, potentially do like a custodial Roth. Like all of those are like there. But when I think about like, man, like, yes, I want to pass down financial literacy to you. I know that for me, one of the biggest things that like I'm still unwinding and unlearning is my money scarcity. And I think it's just because I grew
Mm,
up with like, there's not enough. And so it's so interesting when my brother got his first job. I had this conversation with him like a couple of years ago. He was like, I just like was hoarding money because I thought I would lose my job. And I was like, I did too. Wait, why did you think that? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, I thought that too. So I'm like, okay, something happened where we just like had this like money scarcity that was passed down to us. And it's not my parents' fault. It's just kind of like that was where our circumstances like where we were. And so I have to constantly like help and tend to my nervous system to work through my money scarcity. And I've seen how other business owners live in like money abundance, and it like I've seen how fast they go. I've seen just like, and I'm like, wow, this is a very different. And so yes, I want to pass down like the assets and the knowledge to my daughter, but I think most importantly, like, and the thing that I feel like actually is going to be like, I need to walk this out really well is like, can she see a regulated nervous system around money, so that her
mm,
default isn't like there's not enough. It's like, oh,
mhm.
my mom was just calm around money, like it was just
Yeah.
neutral. And like that's going to take growth for me, but to me that would be like the best, like, here, like I give you this. I
Yeah.
never had that, and it made things harder. And I wish that like you just like navigate money with a lot of like neutrality and calmness and groundedness. And when something happens, your default isn't like, are we going to lose everything? Because that can
Mm.
sometimes be mine, not as much or as intense as it used to be, but yeah, I have to kind of work that out, and I would like to pass something down that's a little better.
I think that's an incredible gift, and I know that you're gonna be successful in doing that. Let's talk to the folks who are in the initial phase of their personal finance journey. Maybe they are where you started, where you know the importance of saving, but you want to get to a place where you're actually building generational wealth, where you are switching from saver to investor. What would be your best advice to start making that transition, both from a mental perspective, but also from like an actual action step perspective?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest thing is what you think investing is probably a lie. So many people think like I have to pick the game winning stock and I have to know what companies to invest in. And I just want to say, like, what you think is not accurate. You don't have to be on your computer with your coffee deciding when to buy and when to sell. That's what you were exposed to with investing, and it's largely probably because of Hollywood. Hollywood dramatizes everything because that's
Right.
it's Hollywood, it's entertainment. But that's not it. So
Yeah.
that's number 1. Number 2, um it it is a lot easier to put your money to work than you think. Um there are so many people building wealth from the stock market, and we are not smarter than you. We didn't figure something out. We don't have this magic secret formula. We just have learned enough about the basic concepts to be like, oh, okay, we trust this level of risk. And so I think that's the biggest debunk, what, how do you say it, myth debunker,
The myth.
myth I want to debunk.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing that holds so many people back is like, I feel like if I put my money to work, it means I have to take on a lot of risk. And it's like, no, the confidence that you feel with your 401k, that strategy and those investments, you can get those in other accounts like a brokerage account. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is if you want like an interest, like a kind of like a what do I do first, I think the first thing that you want to do is just get familiar with the language and the accounts and what everything means. So I'd say like first thing, and you can get a lot of free information online now for this, is like, okay, I just need to know what the words mean. What is a mutual fund? What is an index fund? So stage one, I would say, is just like learn the language. Stage two is like, okay, I learned the language. I know what's out there. How does this apply to me?
Mm,
A lot of times people are going to stage two and trying to piece things together, and it's like, wait, you have to fully understand like the ins and outs first.
yeah.
So stage two is like, how does this apply to me and how do I personalize it? And then stage three is like, okay, what buttons do I press? Like, what broker do I go to? How do I buy an investment? And I think that can help people kind of know, like, okay, I am in stage one. I don't know all anything. I need to stay here until like I at least understand the fundamentals. And then from there, how does it apply to me? And then from there, okay, we're actually pressing buttons. What sometimes happens is
Hmm.
people will hear like an Instagram reel talking about the S&P 500, and they'll they'll kind of get a little bit of stage one. I think it's applied to me. Let me do it. And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but then it's like, now you just have $200 in an S&P 500 fund and you're like, I did it. I don't know. Is this it? And it's like,
I don't know
feels a
what I
little
did, but I
incomplete.
did something.
Yes. And that's a great starting point, but you want to build from that. And to me, these are the stages that allow you to be like, okay, I chose this fund. This is how much I put on it. I have this automation. Here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like, I actually understand.
Yeah. That's actually why I structured the investing chapter in my book Financially Lit in that specific order. So the chapter starts off with a list of terminology, aka big ass fancy words that they want to just confuse you with so that you go and hire an advisor right away because you're just like, well, I don't understand any of what the hell's going on.
Mhm.
So you can do it. And it's literally a couple pages worth of literally a thesaurus of investing. So everything from like what is a cap rate, what is a expense ratio, what is a an IRA, and it's just like you have to understand money is its own language. And the same way as if you were to want to go and visit France, you should probably learn some French so you know what the hell's going on. If you want to get proficient with money, you should learn the language of it because oftentimes that is what has been the primary way that the information has been gate kept. But when you
Mhm.
realize that, oh, okay, so a stock is you're buying a little slice of a company. Okay, I can understand that. Or a dividend is when a company pays you for holding their stock. It's a little incentive for them to be like, hey, keep investing in this company and we'll give you money in return. Then it starts to make more sense when you have that like layman's terms, translation. So I love the
Mhm.
approach that you take. And I think it really is also understanding that there's always going to be something that you have to learn in this world, right? As someone who is now a
Mhm.
mom, you got to think about estate planning in a way that maybe when you were like a, single Pringle back in your early
Yeah.
20s, I'm not worried about an estate plan. What the hell is that? I don't even have
Yeah.
anything to my name, right? It's like now, okay, we got a house. Who's it going to? Who's going to take care of my child if something happens to me? What's life insurance? Like all these things come up as we age, as our lives changes. And it's just important to be, I think, a forever student and understanding that
Mhm.
there's always going to be something that we don't know. I mean, there's like crypto wasn't a thing a couple years ago. Now you got to go learn about that shit. Who knows what's next in the worlds of money? And when you approach it from
NFTs
a place
when
of
they're
curiosity, right, you got to approach this as there will always be something I don't know, and I'm willing to be educated on it. I'm willing to be uncertain about it, and I'm willing to just open myself up to understand that like this world evolves and so will you as a person and so will your money journey.
yeah, for sure.
All right. So, Andrea, I'm curious what is next for you as you continue to build out your business? Now you are incorporating this new role as mom into your life and figuring out how to balance all the things that you have going on. Tell us what's next and where we can find you.
Yeah. So for me, what's next? I think I had to refocus and realign to a goal. I think what I did at the beginning of the year was bring my like non child goals into like my mother life, and I was like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna do both. Watch me. And it's not to say that that I can't. I think I thought I wouldn't miss a beat, and now I'm like, oh my,
Mm,
like my life changes, my rhythms change, like And I'm
Your
not saying
priorities
that like
change
I
too.
can't. Yes, yeah. Like and I just didn't get it. Like no, you can't get it. You can't get it until you do
Yeah.
it. But I think I struggled from like April to June being like, wow, why is it like this is like not the same, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, you know what? This is where we're at. This is the time we have. This is the mental energy we have. It's all different. And with this, here's what I want to create. And I had to let go of, but so and so's doing this, and I was supposed to do this, and last year I could do this. And I was like, this is what we're doing. And then I had to tell that ambitious part of myself, like, hey, I hear you. I hear your heartbreak. I'm not saying we can't have that. I'm just saying we're not going to get there maybe as fast as you originally thought. But we will get
Mm-hmm.
there. That is the goal.
Yeah.
Like I promise I haven't forgotten you. And so I think that's for me the next step is like, okay, how do I build a profitable business as a mother who wants to work 3, 4 days a week, and still deliver a great service and still continue to like create content. So I think I'm more now in my lane and being like, hey, like I don't need to hit this amount of growth in this year, and all these like stats that you hear, hit this much in this. I'm like, I'm just doing my thing. As long as my family's good, I'm like serving my clients well, my business is growing, like we're here, and we are going to get to the ultimate whatever goal
Yeah.
we have. It's just
Yeah.
going to look different. So yeah, that's what's next for me. And then if you're wanting to follow me, you can head to building.gen.wealth on Instagram. I am a very visual learner. So a lot of the content that I create about investing is drawings and pictures, just because I feel like sometimes I can explain auditory what a mutual fund is, but then like for me, my brain likes pictures, so I draw out like this is functionally what it is. So if you're like that too, yeah, I think it could be really helpful. But yeah, that's where I hang out.
I love that. And we'll make sure to link all of your resources in the episode show notes. Andrea, I'm wishing you continued success as you help our community build wealth, make changes, break cycles. And I'm also wishing you much success in this new journey as a mom, as a business owner. I know how reorienting the experience can be. And what I think I'm most grateful for is how much becoming a mom has like reinforced the importance of what we are doing, not just for
Mhm.
ourselves but of what we can represent to other women who want to be those cycle breakers in their families, who want their kids to grow up with that regulated nervous system around money, and just understanding that anything is possible. You're an incredible example of that, and I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. For folks that want to find out more about Andrea and her work at Building Gen Wealth, check out the episode show notes. Make sure you watch on YouTube and subscribe, like, and share. And if you found this episode entertaining, educational, or a combination of both, make sure that you share it with somebody who needs today's lesson. And until next time, stay poderosa.